Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world with our safe, secure, fast, and convenient service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia. Supersonics Money Transfer. We are currently in 34 African countries and counting, giving you quality money remittance services that are second to none. Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics.
Bukan waringe sin million sa jupae kungangar am pikireti coronavirus. Coronavirus kwa kanga sumut kanu manje bajuta nyile, bajuta nine, bajuta nifam, bajuta nine, bajuta stek. Kanga ka sumut kanu manje bukana tuku gore. Badne baj ke bari sumu yene tere gudi ka sumut kati coronavirus. Tate ten menya di baj pikireti yang konem vaccine manje anosan awurna pour mana janga yo bangola tanka fanga fa ka sumut kati COVID-19.
Our colleague, and I work with the programs department and peace ambassadors. As we said the other time, we'll be having this more frequently on our observation period for voter registration and of updates from our first phase of observation. We said initially from our last press conference that we'll be having updates frequently as the registration goes on. We'll be having it in 3 phases, our registration. And we have just completed our first phase, and we want to put you on the loop to know what we've been working on and the observations we have made throughout the first phase of our observation, which we did in 3 days, different places, different observers. We're going to have the press release, as you all know. So you're all here. Without wasting much time, I will introduce Mr. Yankuba Manjang, our executive Secretary, to give out the press release.
Welcome to all of you to Peace Ambassadors the Gambia's second press briefing, or we call it press conference, to update the general public as to the observation process that we are engaged in. Like she rightly mentioned, I am Yakuba Manjang, the Executive Secretary, Peace Ambassadors the Gambia. Today I am tasked to read this statement on behalf of our President, who is unavoidably absent. And from our observation finding, it reads: Peace Ambassadors the Gambia Park Elections Watch Project 2021. Park voter registration update number 2, that's on the 5th June 2021. Peace Ambassadors the Gambia Park is a voluntary non-profit peace education and advocacy organization operating in the Gambia, Senegal, and Guinea-Bissau. Park's non-partisan citizen observation efforts for the 2021 voter registration to make the process more inclusive, transparent, and accountable by enhancing participation, providing independent information on the quality of the process, and determining potential problems. Summary. Peace Ambassadors the Gambia Park beginning May 29, 2021, deployed 59 trained observers across the 7 administrative regions and 53 constituencies of the Gambia to observe the voter registration process. This report serves as our second update, and it covers the start or first phase of the voter registration exercise from Saturday 29th May 2021 to Wednesday 2nd June 2021. Overall, reports from the park observers from all 53 constituencies showed that the registration is progressing across the entire country and that registration officials are following most of the registration procedures. There have been challenges with the functioning of registration equipment, such as printers, laptops, which has caused the early closure of some centers. But the agents are being deployed, of some centers, but this has not been widespread. It was indicated that the security personnel and party political agents are being deployed across the country to observe the process. Nonetheless, it was noted by park observers that registration staff appeared to be inconsistently applying the registration procedures in some centers, and security officials are likewise inconsistent in enforcing the COVID-19 regulations. The methodology that park deployed. PAC has deployed 59 total trained observers across the country, including 6 regional coordinators, 1 per region with Banjul and KM being matched together, having 1 coordinator, and 53 constituency observers, 1 per constituency. PAC has deployed its observers in every constituency using 2 deployment methodologies, that is stationary and mobile observers. All 53 constituency observers were deployed as stationary observers for a total of 9 days, for a total of 9 assigned days throughout the registration period from May 29th to 11th July 2021, while all 6 regional coordinators were deployed to observe on every day throughout the registration period within their assigned regions, where they are mobile, observing the general environment of the registration process and reporting critical incidents as they occur. All 53 constituency observers were instructed to observe at a single registration center throughout the day and 3 specific days. That is on Saturday 29th May, Monday 31st May, and Wednesday 2nd June were those 3 assigned dates. In their assigned constituencies, on each observation day, every observer sent in 4 observation reports based on a comprehensive checklist via coded text message using their mobile phones to the PAC's reporting database. These 53 constituency observers have been assigned based on the IEC 2021 movement plan according to the availability of IEC officials at registration centers within the constituencies. All PAC observers were accredited by the IEC and permitted to observe. Now we go to our findings. This PAC report provides comprehensive information on reports from all PAC observers during the first phase of the voter registration observation, that is from 29th May to 2nd June. All 53 constituency observers submitted reports each of the 3 days during the first reporting phase, reflecting their observations at 119 unique registration centers. Due to the small number of registration centers in some constituencies, some observers reported from the same center on multiple days. During the observation process, during opening exercises, we observed, of the total of 159 reports received by our observers during this phase, 142 reports, constituting 89%, indicated that their observed centers open on time, that is between 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., with the remaining 17% constituting only 11%, 17 constituencies, only 11% opening after 8:30 a.m. This has been broken down in this format. Saturday, 29th May, 2021. 40 of the 53 observed registration centers opened between 8 o'clock to 8:30 a.m. On Monday, 31st May, 50 of the 53 observed registration centers opened between 8 o'clock to 8:30 a.m. And on Wednesday, 2nd June, 52 of the 53 observed registration centers opened between 8 o'clock to 8:30 a.m. After the opening, we go to set up. Generally, during phase 1, PAC observers reported that many centers that opened had the staff and materials required and remained open throughout the day. For example, 128 of 159 observer reports showed that centers were accessible by all registrants, while 31 of 159 reports showed that centers were not accessible. For example, applicants were required to go upstairs, which potentially poses a problem for some persons with disabilities. Another example, 151 of 159 observer reports showed that registration centers were identifiable and clearly marked by signs. 129 of the 159 observer reports showed that IEC registration centers had at least 4 registration staff present when the center was open, an average of 37. 133 of the 159 observer reports indicate that registration centers had at least 2 female 2 female registration staff, and 156 of 159 observer reports indicate that registration centers had all the critical registration materials present. On the COVID-19 measures, the IEC in its 2021 voter registration training manual included the implementation of the COVID-19 safety guidelines as provided by the Ministry of Health of the Gambia and the World Health Organization, WHO, at all registration centers. For the total of 159 reports received during phase 1 of the PAC registration centers had the following numbers of all the required COVID-19 prevention materials such as hand wash buckets, soaps, sanitizers, and thermometers for registration of applicants, staff, and observers according to the following observation dates. On Saturday, May 29th, 29 of 53 observation centers had all required COVID-19 materials. On Monday, 31st May, 35 of 53 registration centers had all the required COVID-19 materials, and on Wednesday, 2nd June, 34 of the 53 registration centers had all the required COVID-19 materials. Additionally, 124 of 159 observer reports showed that the IEC officials wore face masks during the implementation of their duties, while only 35 reports showed that IEC officials did not wear the mask during the conduct of the process. In the same manner, the total of 46 of 159 observers reports reflect that security personnel always enforce the COVID-19 regulations at observed registration centers, while 84 of 159 reports showed that security present sometimes enforce the COVID-19 regulations at hand wash, temperature checks, and social distancing during registration. The registration procedures. Generally, PAC observer reports indicate that registration officials followed most of the registration procedures, such as requesting applicants to present a valid identification before being registered, having applicants affix their thumbprint or signature to application forms to certify that their information were correct, the operator inputting the data of successful registrants, as well as giving priority to people requiring assistance, such as pregnant women and persons with disability. 157 of 159 reports showed that all or many registrants were asked to present a valid identification document, such as ID card, birth certificate, Gambian passport, or an attestation before being registered. 152 of 159 reports showed that no applicant who presented a valid national identification document was denied to register. 157 of 159 reports showed that applicants were asked to affix their thumbprint to the registration form to certify that their information was correct before being sent to the operator. 158 of 159 observer reports showed that the operator input the data of all applicants into the laptop and their photos were taken. 143 of 159 PAC observer reports showed that applicants requiring assistance, such as pregnant women and persons with disability, were given priority to register. However, PAC observers also noted that some procedures were applied inconsistently across registration centers. For example, 149 of 159 reports reflects that IEC officials did not always ask registrants whether they had registered somewhere else. The above-mentioned question was a major emphasis in the IEC training manual, which is geared towards reducing the incident of multiple registration. Below are registration figures by procedures based on reports received by PAC observers. Only 122 of 159 reports showed that the card issuer at registration centers presented all successful registrants with a voter card before allowing them to leave the center. 5 of the 159 reports showed that successful applicants did not receive their voter cards after registration. In most cases, this was due to a malfunction of the card printer. 23 of the 159 reports showed that in the application, if the applicant was found to be ineligible, registration officials did not fill out the rejection form, and the rejected applicant was not served a copy. 100 of 159 observer reports showed that many applicants who successfully registered presented only the attestation signed by the district CFO or alcalo. On the part of the security and party agents, park observers reported that many centers having uniformed security personnel and political party agents present to observe the process. Out of the 159, 155 reports showed that there were uniformed security personnel present at registration centers. 137 of the 159 reports, political party deployed at least 2 party agents. In the closing, generally, with the lighting, can I continue with your permission? Thank you. In the closing part of it, generally, observers reported that registration centers remain open throughout the day for the required time, which is 5 p.m. However, the malfunctioning of some critical registration equipment such as printers and laptops did require some observed centers to close down early. For example, out of the 159 observed reports, 96 indicated some type of equipment malfunctioning during the day. Most of these cases, 53 were quickly resolved. However, 43 reports indicate that the malfunctioning caused serious delay and delay of the registration process. Only 7 of the 159 reports showed that registration centers closed early due to the malfunctioning of critical registration materials. Also, for registration centers that remain open until 5 p.m., not all reports showed that applicants who were already in the queue were allowed to register. For example, 26 of the 158 park observer reports showed that applicants who were already in the queue before 5 p.m. were sent home by the IEC officials and informed to come back the next day. The IEC's training manual indicates that applicants in the queue at 5 p.m. should be allowed to register for that day. Park observers also witnessed instances of disruption, intimidation, and harassment at some registration centers. For example, 13 centers out of the 158 reported centers showed that registration centers had some level of disruption or attempt to disrupt the registration throughout the observation day, while in 16 of the 158 reports showed that there were instances of intimidation and harassment at registration centers. Away from the checklist, we move on to the critical incidents. Park observers were instructed to immediately report any serious problem that could compromise the conduct of the voter registration exercise. During the first phase of the observation, Park received 116 critical incidents, and we were able to confirm 59 incidents. A vast majority of the critical incidents received were centered on early closure of registration centers or delay in registration process due to malfunction of critical registration materials such as laptop, printers, generators, etc. Other critical incidents of note reported by park observers included turning away of registrants by the IEC officials, even when they were in the queue before 5 p.m. Registrants opposing that priority be given to people with special needs as well as disability, and the attempt of underage registrants to register using the CFO and alcalo attestations. Our interim recommendations. Again, overall, reports from the park observers from all 53 constituencies showed that registration is progressing across the entire country and that registration officials are following most of the registration procedures. There have been challenges with the functioning of registration equipment, such as printers and laptops, which have caused the early closure of some centers. But these have not been widespread. It has been observed that security personnel and political party agents are being deployed across the country to observe the process. Nonetheless, it was noticed by park observers that registration staff appeared to be inconsistently applying the registration procedures in some centers, and security officials are likewise inconsistent in enforcing the COVID-19 procedures. PAC, in this regard, offers the following recommendation to help enhance the quality of the registration process. First, to the IEC. PAC extend commendation to the IEC for the timely opening of the registration centers, as well as the availability of registration officials to conduct the registration process. We equally encourage the IEC to employ concrete measures to address the issue of faulty registration equipment at registration centers in order to ensure that eligible Gambians can register in stipulated time frame for the voter registration. Cautions the IEC registration staff to evenly apply the procedures and guidelines stipulated for the registration process that is in conformity with the electoral legal framework. And to the security services, PAC encourages security personnel to consistently enforce the COVID-19 regulations at various registration centers assigned in order to ensure that the general public is protected during the conduct of this voter registration exercise. Security services such as immigration and police should remain vigilant in the conduct of their service so as to keep an eye on illegal registration as well as speedily intervene during instances of violence and disruption. To the political parties, we admonish all political parties to adhere to the IEC regulations stipulated in its recent public statement to have only one political party agent per center, and that all parties should adhere to guidelines employed by the IEC officials at registration centers. We equally encourage political party supporters to stop spreading false information, hate speech, and violent actions during this period. To the stakeholders, expand efforts to inform the public that if they want to vote in 2021, they must register in 2021. And remember that PAC is committed to continuing to observe the registration process. As such, a more comprehensive report with detailed observation findings and recommendations will be issued at the end of the exercise. Peace Ambassadors de Gambia, on a final note, is a voluntary non-profit organization and advocacy organization operating in the Gambia, Senegal, and Guinea-Bissau. Since its inception in 2001, peace, education, and conflict resolution has served as the basis of the organization's existence. We incorporate other core issues such as youth empowerment, civic education, and election observation. These core issues are made possible through capacity building and awareness creation. Peace Ambassadors de Gambia has since 2006 monitored every election held in the Gambia, including presidential, parliamentary, and local government elections. The organization also conducts voter education to enhance the public, to ensure the public is educated on the conduct of the elections in all aspects. This is the organization's commitment to ensuring peace and stability in the country. Peace Ambassadors de Gambia, Gambia's non-partisan citizen observation effort for the 2021 voter registration is to make the process more inclusive, transparent, and accountable by enhancing participation, providing independent information on the quality of the process, and deterring potential problems. PAC's 2021 observation efforts are conducted in partnership with the National Democratic Institute, NDI, who provided the technical support and financed by the National Endowment for Democracy, NED. On the final note, Peace Ambassadors the Gambia, thank you for your kind consideration, as well as working with you all to advancing the democracy of the Gambia.
We all have an update of what we've been working on the past days. So, do we have any questions in relation to the update that you have just been given?
First one, with the issue of IEC turning people away by 5 p.m. We have, in our report, recommended to the IEC to make sure that, as stipulated in their training manual, that if people are in the queue by 5 p.m., they must be allowed to vote. This report will be shared with the IEC, and we equally have a crisis management team that is engaging the IEC to make sure that the people in the queue by 5 p.m. are not turned away. If not, it might discourage some other people to come back the following day, most especially after queuing for over an hour or so. That IEC need to put into consideration. With the issue of the attestation, it is currently the most talked about issue in town, but it is provided for by law that the Alcalo and the CFO should provide attestation to people who did not or do not have the ID card, passport, or birth certificate. As such, we have also flagged this because many people are using the attestation to register. And this runs across from minors to elderly people who, in one way or the other, did not have some of these valid national documents. So we have flagged it to the IEC. I know our National Assembly passed this law giving that Alcalo those powers, but at least with a check on those powers will be very, very good moving forward. And this recommendation will be shared with the IEC. I'm sorry, currently taking note, most especially our concern with minors being registered, and the police of recent made some arrest of seven people that has been reported in Farato of obtaining, trying to obtain the registration, voters registration card. So we're still engaging on them, and one of the reasons why we're encouraging the party agents, the political parties, to also be observing at every center is to sometimes detect some of these issues. If you have agents around, if IEC want to register the minors, it's been flagged by party agents and the observers in the field. So that will as well reduce the tendency of Alcalos issuing attestation to foreign nationals and minors, most especially during this registration process. So we are still engaging the IEC to try to curb that incident. But what they told us during the engagement is IEC did not have the power to interview any registrants who come with any of the valid documents. This is what was provided for by law. So if anybody present any of these 4 documents to the IEC officers on the ground, you only have one option: register the passing. But with the observers in place, we can, even though it's not part of our mandate, but we can question some of these issues, and it can raise that eyebrow or flag that the IEC officials and the Alcalos, most especially, issuing those attestations to take note of some of those issues. Thank you. So I don't think we have observed that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nelson, for those 2 questions. The first one with regards to the mayor giving attestation. We also followed the reports, and our observers in Banjul reported that the mayor is issuing attestation to people, and we know the mayor is not an Alcalo or a CFO, and these are the 2 categories provided for by law. But again, the IEC is equally mandated to regulate elections in the country. As such, IEC gave the mayor the powers to give attestation. From our organizational point of view, we've noted it, and our crisis management team has engaged the IEC, and the same clarification that the IEC gave to the general public is what they gave to the crisis management team. We are also monitoring incidents of people filing, people saying that they will file at the courts for clarification on the issue. We will be monitoring that process until when the Supreme Court made a judgment to that effect, either the mayor, whether the mayor has the powers or not. For now, we are going by what the IEC is doing, or what the power that the IEC vested on the mayor to give attestation, even though we are monitoring the happenings carefully in Banjul. But until then, before we will have that court make the judgment on that, we will not be able to take another different side as what is currently on the table. So we hope that the courts will, the cases will be filed from political parties or independent observers to the court, that the court will equally expedite that process so that we will know exactly what the fate will be to that effect. With the low turnout, we cannot comment on the low turnout, whether it is low or high. One thing we can comment confidently on is that there is generally a low civic education about the registration process, most especially the dates that the IEC will be in specific areas when it comes to the populace around that end. Because the process is a long one, it's not a one-day event. That's why we could not comment on the low turnout. Some people choose to register on the first day. Others will always choose to come the last day, the Badibunka style, last ferry. If we are going, they always like to cross with the last ferry. Some people would like to wait for the last minute to go and register. So this is why we did not comment on the turnout, because it can fluctuate at any point in time. But the citizens are really, the citizens really need the information, most especially as to the dates that the IEC will be in their constituencies or their wards, so that they can go out and register. Thank you. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I am Suleiman, one from the community. Reports have emerged that people from social media, there are some agents from political parties have been confronting people accusing them of not being Gambian. Have you organization come across such situation?
Thank you, Mr. Wan. Yes, there has been few incidents of such reports that the party agents attempting to interfere with the registration process. And this we have also flagged in the report, that if we are to observe, you have issues with the foreign nationals or minors trying to register, most especially those people who do not have the ID or the passport. So you rather do it with the alcalos before issuing the attestation, but at the registration center, you cannot pick that up with the IEC registration staff, because what the law says is whoever presented any of the four, you should register and you should not interview that person. So we are just encouraging the political party agents to re-engage, or to further engage the alcalos, where the issuance is taking place at the first instance. But in the worst case scenario, that what they are doing, if people are in the queue, it is not your duty to come and interview that individual. So we implore on the police and the immigration department, most especially, to verify the citizens. They have that power to look around who is a Gambian and who is not a Gambian. And the police have already said they've arrested 7 at Farato. That's one incident that is already reported. So we employ on them to be on that standby and vigilant to make sure that these people that are minors and of foreign nationals not to have access to our registration or attestation, so that they can be able to register for the 2021 elections. Thank you. Any other question? Or should I say any further question? Okay.
I think I'll just give a suggestion.
Okay.
There's been many complaints. People names and surnames are being, print out or wrongly spelled. And this as a result, when you come on the day of election, you won't be able to vote. So I think this suggestion will go to you people so that you make at least sensitization, especially to our elderly people, those that are not educated. Well, if they go home, at least let them give their IDs to the younger ones who are at least a bit educated, to help them to see if their names are correctly spelled or not. Because this has been a concern and it needs to be addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for flagging that. Thus far, our observers have not reported any incident of that nature. Just yesterday, I believe I've seen one on Facebook, and I've recorded it as a critical incident, so we'll start monitoring from that point. It's just yesterday that it came to our attention online, we've seen. So we will pick that up and try to see from our crisis management team what the advice will be from their end, as well in our civic engagement, to see what happens from that point on. But not only the peace ambassadors to enlighten the citizens. This is press conference. We have a lot of media houses here, from your online channels to your radio stations, and as well your print. We can amplify the message. If you are giving your voter's card, give to somebody who can correctly call your name and surname, even if not at home, but at the station. Give to an individual. Luñ fi binda. the person call your name and your surname. If it matches your name and surname, take your card, you can go home civilizedly. If it did not, you don't have to go home. Go to the registrar and request for a clarification or a correction in your name, because it matters. On the 4th of December, if you come with a wrong name and a wrong surname, that is definitely not going to be you, except if the IEC has that name and that surname in their system. But if not, we will just say, we are sorry, or the IEC will, officers will tell you sorry, but you cannot vote. And you have nobody to blame but yourself. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, let me take the gentleman first and come to you, Ma.
Thank you very much. I have a suggestion. My name is Kudia from the APRC. My first suggestion would be, I registered on the very first day when the registration began. When my card was printed out, occupation was left out. I have to bring it to their attention, and they will take another one and it was given to me. Like you mentioned, some can cross-check and those details, others cannot read. I think it's important to suggest to IEC, especially those doing data entry, so that they will have at least basic background in IT. It will help a lot. Those who have basic background in IT, when it comes to typing, it's not about speed but accuracy. That also helps a lot. So it's not like just take people as temporary staff for them to help you in the job, but the technical know-how and what they can do is also very, very important. Second suggestion I would have is for the IEC themselves to enlighten people who is a Gambian and what he was sex. That's very first day also. I found it in the clip. A very debate or quarrel, I would call it. One of them came with a Gambian birth certificate. But some people who were observers said his accent looks like a Senegalese, so he's not a Gambian. I have to intervene and tell them, the laws of our country is not your accent, it's not your tribe, your name, your surname, or where you're born from. That's what makes you a Gambian. What the law, which says one of your parents or grandparents must be a Gambian in order for you to qualify to be a Gambian. So where you were born is not important. Your name and surname is also not important. Your tribe is not important. So the IEC must sensitize general masses about who is a Gambian. It is very important. You could be born in this country and yet be foreign. Yes. You could speak Mandinka, Wolof, Fula, or any other national language very well and still be a foreigner. And most of these languages, you might be born outside the Gambia, by a Gambian parent, you're still a Gambian, even though you're not well or favoring our national language. That does not have to deprive you from acquiring our national language. So this again is important. Most Gambians, they don't know who is a Gambian. So I think this has created a lot of chaos in this voter registration center. So to suggest to the IEC themselves, sensitize the masses about what people say, who is a Gambian is very important.
Thank you very much for those observations and recommendation. I think you can't say it better than how you put it. Many Gambians will say, "Man fila judo, man Gambian la," and that conversation happens everywhere. And what the law says, until you go back to the law, you will not know that you are not a Gambian. So we will encourage the IEC and as well the NCCE to educate people as to who is a Gambian and what makes one a Gambian. Judo fi yaro fi rekta hunga neka Gambian as provided by the laws. So it will be important we know those steps before going to the registration center and just be humiliated that we are not Gambians. Thank you so very much for that observation. Yes, ma.
My name is recently we've been up countries as well. We talk about a project of irregular migration, but also incorporated voter registration in the community. And my observation in this process is that some of the community, the voter registration process hasn't reached them. And some of them would not know what to do or when to do it or how to do it. So I would also suggest that this is a nationwide, it's a nationwide thing that the IEC needs to reach every corner of the country to get every Gambian the education that they need, especially during this election period. Because some of them would complain, like one of the comments we got was like,
I suggest that IEC and NCCE should be able to decentralize this information to every Gambian who needs it. Because if all of these issues are happening, it's because a lot of people don't get the information right. So I suggest that the IEC decentralize the information as well. And another suggestion is that if we are having press conferences like this, I think I would suggest that we also do something like this in local language, so that our elderly who don't speak their language English will be able to have the information that all of us who are educated are having the information.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gomez. The awareness creation part is very, very important, and that one I would say in the NCCE and IEC as the primary stakeholder should double their effort. But as well, I will call on the civil society organizations like Activista de Gambia, the National Youth Parliament, who are all around doing greatly in the education of the populace, to double that effort. Now is the time that everybody should be talking about only go and register, go and get your card. Other activity or project implementations are important, but this 44 days period, we've already eaten 7 days. Today is the 8th day of the registration process. If you miss out in this general registration, you might wait for another 5 years before you register, because that's the time that the supplementary registration will be happening. So you'll miss a whole electoral cycle, presidential, parliamentary, and even the local government elections. So it will be important that we all together double our efforts in making sure that every individual eligible Gambian go out there and get registered, so that December 2021, we will be able to go in numbers and vote. And I'm always biased in this regard. The elderly are important, but the young people, we want a record turnout from the young people. And my call is always on them to make sure that we go out, register. If we said we are 54% or over 54% of Gambia's population, our numbers should matter in December. So we can do whatever we feel like doing. If politicians did not listen before December, we will know what to do in December. So, but if we don't register, really in December, we will only be left out. With the local language, thank you so very much. I will try. My local language is not the best. So moving forward, this is a recommendation to peace ambassadors. The communication team will look at.
Our national language, not local language.
Thank you. Our national language will be looked at that when we are doing press conference in subsequent, in the third and fourth and moving forward, we'll have at least 1 or 2 people who will be able to speak how do you call it? Fluently in the national languages. If I want to speak Wolof here, some people will run away. So I will not attempt it, but moving forward, we'll look into that possibility. Yeah. Thank you.
One more.
Thank you for that suggestion. It's apt. If you don't register, you cannot vote, and if you register at a wrong center, you won't be able to vote as well. So it will be important that the public get that notification. But with the IEC's registration duration 44 days, we had some engagements with them. What the CEO told me is what I will tell you. They said they have it all undercovered. So how covered is that undercovered? I won't be in the position to say it right now, but we've mapped out the team movement, the number of days allocated. What you flagged is very right. If IEC can do a 120 print per day, the printers, calculate, for example, I am from Old Josong, about over 15,000 voters as per the last elections. This year, how many eligible voters do we have? Do that calculation by the 44 days. You have some very odd numbers that will be above the 120 that they can register. So what happens to the surplus number of people? And with the current reports that we are having from our observers, machines malfunctioning, the 120 now, some centers cannot register it. So what happens to those that are being surplus as a result of the malfunctioning of the printers? I believe IEC will come out to address some of these issues. But like they said, they have the powers to also as well extend. If the need be, they will do that extension. I will not preempt it on their behalf, but we will continue on the engagement, like I've said earlier on. We have a team called the Crisis Management Team at Peace Ambassadors that look around some of these issues. So if by the second phase of it going to the final round, we realize that many Gambians are not registered, and we can always flag it to the IEC to look into the possibility of an extension of the registration period that we will do when the time arises.
Bukan waringe sin million sa jupae kungangar pikireti coronavirus. Coronavirus kwa kaka sumut kanu manje bajuta nyil, bajuta nine, bajuta nifam, bajuta nine, bajuta stek. Kaka ka sumut kanu manje bukan nak tuku gore. Badne baj ke bari sumu yene tere gudi ka sumut kati coronavirus. Tate ten menya ji baj pikireti yang konem vaccine yang manje anosan awurna pur mana janga yo bangola tanka fanga fa ka sumut kati COVID-19.
Guliji yimbe ka hore leydi woni ko yetti ndu pikiru coronavirus non ko gonga anda bale anda dani anda paykun anda mawdo wari africans be buri ka hore leydi sabu non ala lekki kono kibaruji welde di woni ndu hebi haray pikiru bayna fo nyetti o vaccine jol ko kala yoreno edindi labi ko dum